एक जायंट जॉइंट फैमिली।
हाँ, a very big one.
हाँ, इस फैमिली में हेड ऑफ द फैमिली है सेंटर और बाकी मेंबर्स हैं स्टेट्स।
हाँ भाई,
अब इनके बीच पैसों का, पावर का और रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज का बंटवारा कैसे होगा?
exactly. कभी कॉपरेशन, कभी कंपटीशन.
और कभी-कभी फुल ऑन कॉन्फ्रंटेशन। तो दोस्त, यही है इंडियन फेडरलिज्म की अमेजिंग स्टोरी। आज हम इसके हर पहलू को एक्सप्लोर करेंगे, जैसे एक एक्सपर्ट डिटेक्टिव। आर यू रेडी?
Absolutely. And ये सिर्फ थ्योरी नहीं है. This is the story of how India, with all its diversity, holds together. It's a very delicate balance.
इससे पहले कि हम इस ज्ञान की दुनिया में गोता लगाए, जल्दी से सब्सक्राइब बटन दबा दो, लाइक ठोको एंड हिट दैट नोटिफिकेशन बेल सो यू डोंट मिस एनी एक्शन। और हाँ, कमेंट करके जरूर बताना व्हाट यू थिंक।
Let's do this.
बिल्कुल, आज का सेशन एक मेगा सेशन है, एक रियल मैराथन। हम एक के बाद एक पूरे 12 इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चंस को टैकल करेंगे। सो इट्स गोइंग टू बी अ लॉन्ग डिटेल्ड डिस्कशन।
It is. We'll start with center-state financial relations.
फिर जीएसटी के लैंडमार्क अमेंडमेंट को समझेंगे, सेंट्रलाइजिंग टेंडेंसीज की बात करेंगे, पानी के झगड़ों वाटर डिस्प्यूट्स को डिकोड करेंगे।
And finally, the special cases of Jammu and Kashmir and Delhi.
सो सीट बेल्ट लगा लो दोस्त, दिस इज योर अल्टीमेट गाइड।
Let's begin. The foundation of everything.
Okay, let's unpack our first question. This one is from 2025 for 15 marks.
Okay.
Examine the evolving pattern of center-state financial relations in the context of planned development in India. How far have the recent reforms impacted the fiscal federalism in India?
The broad micro theme is
Evolution of fiscal federalism in India. So our heading can be center-state financial relations from planning to GST.
perfect.
तो सिंपल वर्ड्स में ये वो रूल्स हैं जो डिसाइड करते हैं कि सेंटर और स्टेट के बीच टैक्स, ग्रांट्स और लोन्स कैसे बांटे जाएंगे। मतलब फैमिली का बजट डिस्कशन है।
Perfect analogy. Imagine एक स्टार्टअप है, यानी द स्टेट्स, जिसे पेरेंट कंपनी यानी द सेंटर से फंडिंग मिलती है।
अच्छा,
पहले इन द प्लान एरा सारी फंडिंग सेंट्रली डिसाइड होती थी कि स्टार्टअप क्या करेगा, कैसे करेगा। बट अब द स्टार्टअप हैज मोर फाइनेंशियल फ्रीडम, टू अट्रैक्ट इट्स ओन इन्वेस्टर्स एंड मेक इट्स ओन डिसीजंस।
गॉट इट। चलो आंसर को ब्रेक डाउन करते हैं। फर्स्ट द इंट्रोडक्शन, कॉन्टेक्स्ट सेट करना बहुत जरूरी है।
हाँ, तो इंट्रोडक्शन में एक्सप्लेन करना है कि आर्टिकल्स 264 टू 293 ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इन फाइनेंशियल रिलेशंस का बेडरॉक है। शुरू में इंडिया एक सेंट्रलाइज्ड प्लान्ड इकोनॉमी के अंडर ऑपरेट करता था, जो अब धीरे धीरे एक कोऑपरेटिव एंड कंपेटिटिव फेडरल स्ट्रक्चर की तरफ बढ़ रहा है।
और ये जर्नी ही इस आंसर का कोर है।
एग्जैक्टली। नाउ फॉर द मेन बॉडी, इसे दो पार्ट्स में डिवाइड करेंगे एज द क्वेश्चन आस्क्स। फर्स्ट, द एवोल्यूशन।
ओके,
बॉडी पार्ट 1, एवोल्यूशन ऑफ रिलेशंस। तो सेंट्रलाइज्ड प्लानिंग एरा 1950 टू 1991, यहाँ द प्लानिंग कमीशन वाज द सुपर कैबिनेट। इट हैड इमेंस पावर,
मतलब स्टेट्स पूरी तरह से डिपेंडेंट थे।
heavily dependent on discretionary transfers under Article 282. इससे क्रिएट हुआ vertical fiscal imbalance, a very important keyword.
वर्टिकल फिस्कल इम्बैलेंस सिंपल वर्ड्स में क्या है?
Simple words में states का खर्चा was more, but उनकी कमाई was less. They were always looking to the center for funds.
ओके, और पोस्ट लिबरलाइजेशन।
So post 1991 liberalization, economic reforms के बाद states को थोड़ी सांस मिली। The FRBM Act of 2003 ने fiscal discipline लाया। फाइनेंस कमीशंस का रोल ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट हो गया और उन्होंने स्टेट्स के लिए ग्रेटर शेयर ऑफ टैक्सेस रेकमेंड करना शुरू किया।
एंड दैट वाज अ बिग शिफ्ट।
A huge shift.
अब आते हैं क्वेश्चन के सेकंड पार्ट पर, बॉडी पार्ट 2, इम्पैक्ट ऑफ रीसेंट रिफॉर्म्स। दिस इज वेयर यू स्कोर बिग मार्क्स, राइट?
Absolutely. सबसे पहले GST, गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज टैक्स, ये बिगेस्ट रिफॉर्म है। इसने GST काउंसिल बनाया, एक बॉडी जहां सेंटर और स्टेट्स मिलकर टैक्स रेट्स डिसाइड करते हैं। वन नेशन वन टैक्स।
नेक्स्ट,
नीति आयोग, यस, एबोलिशन ऑफ प्लानिंग कमीशन एंड क्रिएशन ऑफ नीति आयोग। नीति आयोग फंड डिस्ट्रीब्यूटिंग बॉडी नहीं है, ये एक थिंक टैंक है दैट प्रमोट्स कोऑपरेटिव एंड कॉम्पिटिटिव फेडरलिज्म।
एंड टैक्स डिवोल्यूशन।
हायर टैक्स डिवोल्यूशन, द 15th फाइनेंस कमीशन ने रिकमेंड किया कि 41% ऑफ द डिविजिबल पूल ऑफ सेंट्रल टैक्सेस स्टेट्स को मिलना चाहिए।
इसका मतलब अनटाइड फंड्स स्टेट्स कैन स्पेंड इट एज दे विश।
Precisely. And finally, relaxed borrowing limits, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. सेंटर ने स्टेट्स को ज्यादा बोरो करने की परमिशन दी।
लेकिन पिक्चर परफेक्ट नहीं है, राइट? चैलेंजेस भी मेंशन करने होंगे।
Absolutely. The vertical fiscal imbalance अभी भी एग्जिस्ट करता है। सेंट्रली स्पॉन्सर्ड स्कीम्स CSS में ऑफन कंडीशंस होती हैं जो स्टेट ऑटोनॉमी को लिमिट करती हैं। और GST कॉम्पेंसेशन डिस्प्यूट्स पैंडेमिक के टाइम पर फ्रिक्शन का कारण बने।
ओके, सो द कंक्लूजन
में ये कहना है कि इंडियन फिस्कल फेडरलिज्म डिपेंडेंसी बेस्ड मॉडल से एक कोलैबोरेटिव मॉडल की तरफ मैच्योर हुआ है। However, the balance is still tilted towards the center.
तो फ्यूचर रिफॉर्म्स को स्टेट्स को फाइनेंशियली एम्पावर करने पर फोकस करना चाहिए।
Yes, maybe by rationalizing CSS and ensuring a more robust dispute resolution mechanism.
परफेक्ट। अब कुछ क्रॉस क्वेश्चनिंग करते हैं फॉर डीप अंडरस्टैंडिंग। फर्स्ट, इंट्रोडक्शन में कोऑपरेटिव फेडरलिज्म मेंशन करना इतना इंपॉर्टेंट क्यों है?
Because it sets the latest context. It shows the examiner you are not just giving historical facts, but are updated with the current spirit of governance. समझे?
हाँ, अंडरस्टूड। सेकंड, वर्टिकल फिस्कल इम्बैलेंस को एग्जाम में सिंपली कैसे एक्सप्लेन करूं?
Approximately 40%. This gap makes them dependent on the center for funds. Perfect definition.
ओके, थर्ड, प्लानिंग कमीशन और नीति आयोग का कंपैरिजन आंसर में क्या वैल्यू ऐड करता है?
It's a game changer. It shows a clear before and after picture. Planning Commission top down था, controlling था. नीति आयोग bottom up और collaborative है. ये कंपैरिजन इवोल्यूशन को परफेक्टली इलस्ट्रेट करता है।
राइट। फोर्थ, जीएसटी काउंसिल को इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइज्ड फिस्कल फेडरलिज्म का बेस्ट एग्जांपल क्यों मानते हैं?
Because for the first time in Indian history, an institution was created जहां सेंटर और स्टेट्स as near equals बैठकर एक नेशन वाइड टैक्स पर डिसाइड करते हैं, thereby sharing their financial sovereignty. It's a very powerful point.
वाओ। फिफ्थ, चैलेंजेस वाले सेक्शन में किसी स्पेसिफिक स्टेट का एग्जांपल देना जरूरी है?
Absolutely. For instance, you could mention how states like Kerala or Punjab have raised concerns about their rising debt. This adds credibility and shows you can apply theory to practice.
Got it. And the final cross question, conclusion को forward looking कैसे बनाएं?
Don't just repeat. Suggest 2-3 specific future reforms. For example, future reforms could include a higher tax share for states or making the GST compensation mechanism a statutory part of the GST framework. This shows vision.
Cool ना?
Very cool.
चलो, अब listeners, pause and practice saying this. India's fiscal federalism has evolved from a model of centralized planning to one of cooperative decision-making, driven by reforms like GST and Niti Aayog. Rehearse this?
So, mini recap. Central-state financial relations have become more collaborative, but the power balance is still tilted towards the center. Simple.
Let's move to the next question.
Okay, next up, a question from 2024 for 15 marks.
What changes has the Union government recently introduced in the domain of center-state relations? Suggest measures to be adopted to build the trust between the center and the states, and for strengthening federalism.
Broad micro-theme is Dynamics of Modern Cooperative Federalism.
So let's call it Building Bridges. Recent shifts in center-state ties.
This question is all about the latest updates. इसको cricket team India की तरह सोचो. The captain is the center and the players are the states.
हाँ, okay. Recent rule changes क्या हैं? और team spirit बढ़ाने के लिए क्या करना चाहिए?
Exactly.
Let's structure the answer.
Introduction में ये कहना है कि recent changes in center-state relations are a complex mix of fiscal, administrative, and constitutional dynamics. The stated aim is to strengthen cooperative federalism, but the outcomes have been, a bit mixed.
Okay. Now, the body. The question has two parts, so two clear sections.
Right.
Body part 1, recent changes.
First, fiscal relations. Mention the 15th Finance Commission's recommendation of 41% tax devolution.
And it's important to add that this was adjusted from 42% because of the new UTs of J&K and Ladakh.
Very important detail. Also mention the large grants for local bodies, 4.36 lakh crore. Second, administrative reforms. Interstate Council, ISC को reconstitute किया गया.
And Niti Aayog is promoting competitive federalism through rankings.
Yes, on indices like health and education. Third, and this is a very high scoring point, judicial interventions.
The Supreme Court judgments.
Yes.
The 2023 ruling on the Delhi government's control over civil servants, the 2024 West Bengal versus CBI case, and the 2025 Tamil Nadu governor case about timelines for bills.
Excellent. Now for the second part. Measures to strengthen relations.
Body part 2. Measures. First, institutional. Hold regular meetings of the Interstate Council. It should be the primary forum for resolving disputes. Also, clear protocols for the governor's role.
Second, financial. Timely release of funds and GST compensation, and more flexibility for states in spending funds from centrally sponsored schemes.
Third, administrative. More consultation with states on subjects in the concurrent list before a central law is enacted.
And finally, dispute resolution. The ISC should be empowered to mediate in sensitive issues like river sharing disputes. Their spirit. This requires institutional dialogue, fiscal empowerment of states, and mutual respect.
Great. Time for some cross questions on this. First, answer को structure करने का best तरीका क्या है?
Use clear headings that mirror the question. First heading, recent changes introduced by the union government. Under this, use subheadings like fiscal, administrative, and judicial. Second heading, measures to build trust and strengthen federalism. Super clear.
Okay. Second, Supreme Court judgments के years याद रखना कितना important है?
Very important. Saying the recent SC judgment is good, but saying the 2023 SC judgment on the Delhi government's control over civil servants is excellent. It shows your knowledge is precise. Extra marks for sure.
Third, competitive federalism and cooperative federalism में क्या फर्क है?
Cooperative is when center and states work together horizontally, like in the GST Council. Competitive is when the center encourages states to compete with each other for development, often through rankings by Niti Aayog.
Got it. Fourth, governor के role पर एक concrete suggestion क्या हो सकता है?
A very strong point would be implementing the Supreme Court's suggestion to establish fixed timelines for governors to either assent, withhold assent, or return a bill for reconsideration. Direct and actionable.
Fifth, should I focus more on the problems or the solutions in this answer?
The question specifically asks you to suggest measures, so your focus should be more on constructive forward-looking solutions. Briefly mention the changes, but dedicate more words to the measures.
Last one. Conclusion में Team India जैसा phrase use करना ठीक है?
Bilkul. It's a phrase often used by the government itself. Using such relevant phrases makes the answer more impactful.
Awesome. Now तुम practice करो, pause, and try to explain one recent fiscal change and one administrative reform. चलो, शुरू हो जाओ.
Mini recap. Recent changes in center-state relations are a mix of finance, admin, and court rulings, and building trust needs better dialogue and financial freedom. Simple, na?
Simple. Chalo, question number 3 from 2023 for 10 marks.
Let's do it.
Explain the significance of the 101st Constitutional Amendment Act. To what extent does it reflect the accommodative spirit of federalism?
Broad micro-theme. GST and the spirit of cooperative federalism.
So we can call this One Nation, One Tax, the GST revolution.
Exactly. This amendment brought in GST. सोचना है कि ये इतना सिग्निफिकेंट क्यों है? इमेजिन पूरे देश में अलग-अलग लोकल मार्केट्स थे जहां हर प्रोडक्ट का प्राइस अलग था ड्यू टू डिफरेंट लोकल टैक्सेस
एंड जीएसटी ने इन सबको एक सिंगल ऑनलाइन मार्केट प्लेस में बदल दिया.
विद अ यूनिफॉर्म टैक्स स्ट्रक्चर.
Yes.
लेट्स गेट इनटू द आंसर फॉर्मेट. इंट्रोडक्शन.
Introduce the 101st Amendment as a landmark reform that transformed India's indirect tax system into a unified tax regime. You can call it a paradigm shift.
Okay, paradigm shift. Now the body. Two parts again. First, significance. Second, accommodative spirit.
Body Part 1. Key features and significance. First, constitutional provisions. It introduced Article 246A, which gave concurrent power to both Parliament and state legislatures to levy GST. This is unique.
Okay, second feature, institutional framework. It established the GST Council under Article 279A. Call it a federal body, where both center and states are members.
Third, tax harmonization. It replaced multiple taxes like VAT, service tax, etc.
And fourth, economic integration. It eliminated the cascading effect.
Yes, and promoted ease of doing business.
Now for the second part, which is the core. How does it reflect accommodative federalism?
Body Part 2. Reflection of accommodative federalism. First, shared sovereignty. Center and states both give up some of their taxing powers to create a shared system. This is huge.
Second, collaborative decision-making. This is about the GST Council's voting structure, right?
The key point. Center has a 33% vote share. All states together have 67%. Any decision needs a 75% majority. इसका मतलब है, no decision can be taken without broad consensus. And third, constitutional safeguards for states. The Compensation to States Act 2017 guaranteed states revenue protection for 5 years.
Right, but don't forget to add a line on the limitations. Some states feared losing fiscal autonomy, and compensation disputes during COVID-19 tested this spirit.
Okay, and for the conclusion.
Conclude by saying that the first amendment is a prime example of cooperative federalism in action. It implemented the one nation, one tax vision through consensus, although some challenges remain in achieving perfect federal harmony.
Time for some rapid-fire cross questions. First, GST Council के voting structure 33%, 67% को explain करने से आंसर में क्या value add होती है?
Immense value. It's concrete proof for your accommodative spirit argument. It shows mathematically that consensus is not just a goal, it's a necessity. Very high impact.
Second, cascading effect of taxes क्या है और GST ने इसे कैसे solve किया?
It means tax on tax. Pehle, tax was added to the cost at every stage, so the next tax was on a higher base. GST solved this by providing input tax credit, so the final tax is only on the value addition.
Third, shared sovereignty जैसे keywords use करना जरूरी है.
Absolutely. These are not just buzzwords. They are high-impact keywords that show a deep understanding of the constitutional concept.
Fourth, 10-mark question के लिए limitations को detail में explain करना है.
No need for detail. Just mention them briefly in one or two lines. For example, however, challenges like delays in compensation payments during the pandemic have created friction. Enough to show a balanced view.
Fifth, introduction में paradigm shift phrase का use क्यों किया गया है?
Because it emphasizes that GST wasn't just another small change. It was a fundamental transformation of India's entire indirect tax system.
And sixth, conclusion में perfect federal harmony लिखना a bit too idealistic तो नहीं है?
Not at all. It's a balanced way to conclude. You're acknowledging that while GST is a great step, the journey is not yet complete. It shows maturity.
Brilliant. अब इसको practice करो. Pause and say, the 101st Amendment introduced GST through Article 246A and established the consensus-based GST Council under Article 279A. Rehearse this.
Mini recap. The 101st Amendment, GST, is a prime example of cooperative federalism, where the center and states share power to create a single national market. Cool, na?
Very cool. Chalo, on to the fourth question. From 2020 for 15 marks.
Let's do it.
The Indian Constitution exhibits centralizing tendencies to maintain unity and integrity of the nation. Elucidate in the perspective of the Epidemic Diseases Act 1897, the Disaster Management Act 2005, and recently passed Farm Acts.
Broad micro-theme. Unitary bias in a federal framework.
So the heading can be Strong Center for a United Nation.
Perfect. So we know India's constitution is federal. But this question asks why, in certain situations, it gives extra power to the center.
Like a school principal in an emergency.
Exactly. Normally, class teachers, states, have autonomy. But during a fire drill, the principal, center, takes over completely to ensure a coordinated response.
So for the introduction,
Start by stating that while India's framework is federal in structure, it has strong unitary features designed to protect national unity and integrity, especially during crisis, often described as quasi-federal.
and for the body, we must discuss the 3 examples given.
Yes, all 3. First, the Epidemic Diseases Act 1897. Explain that. This is a colonial-era law, but it was used extensively during the COVID-19 pandemic. It empowered the center to issue binding directions to states to ensure a unified national response.
Like the nationwide lockdown.
Exactly. Second, the Disaster Management Act 2005. This act creates a clear hierarchical structure. The National Disaster Management Authority, NDMA, is at the top, headed by the Prime Minister. It gives the central government authority to issue binding directions.
And the third, the Farm Acts. This one is a case study of tension.
A perfect case study. The Farm Acts 2020. The center enacted these laws using Entry 33 of the concurrent list. However, states opposed them, arguing that agriculture is a state list subject. The massive protests and the eventual repeal highlight the friction.
And it's important to mention the constitutional basis for this centralization, right?
Very important. Mention articles like 256 and 257, which empower the center to give directions to states, and of course, the emergency provisions.
And for the conclusion?
Conclude that these centralizing tendencies are crucial for handling national emergencies. However, the experience of the farm laws shows that there is a need to build political consensus and balance national interest with federal autonomy.
Okay, let's do the cross questions. First, why is it important to cite specific articles like 256 and 257?
Because it provides the constitutional backbone to your argument. It moves your answer from a general statement to a well-supported legal point.
Second, how does the Farm Act's example really strengthen the answer?
It provides a contemporary, real-world example of the consequences of this centralizing tendency. It shows that this isn't just a historical feature, but an active point of political debate today.
Third, is it necessary to mention the repeal of the Farm Acts?
Yes, absolutely. It completes the story. It shows that when centralization is perceived as overreach, the federal structure has mechanisms, even political ones, to push back.
Fourth, can we call the Disaster Management Act an example of cooperative federalism too?
That's a great question. It's more an example of coercive or centralized federalism because the directions from the center are legally binding. The power structure is clearly top-down.
Fifth, how can I frame the introduction to immediately grab the examiner's attention?
Start by acknowledging the paradox. Something like, the Indian Constitution masterfully balances federal principles with a strong unitary bias, creating a system that is, as Casey here described, quasi-federal.
And last one, what's a good way to conclude without taking a political side on the Farm Acts?
Emphasize balance and process. Conclude by saying that the key learning is the importance of the process of consultation with states before enacting laws on subjects with overlapping jurisdiction. Neutral, yet analytical.
Got it. Time to practice. Pause and rehearse this sentence. The Constitution provides for centralizing tendencies during emergencies through acts like the DM Act, but they must be balanced with federal principles of consultation.
Mini recap. The Constitution allows for a strong center for national unity, but this power must be used with care, consultation, and consensus.
Okay, let's move on to question 5 from 2020 for 10 marks.
Let's do it.
How far do you think cooperation, competition, and confrontation have shaped the nature of federation in India? Cite some recent examples to validate your answer.
Broad micro-theme. The 3 C's of Indian federalism.
Let's call it the 3 C's, shaping modern federalism.
This is a fantastic question. It's asking about the 3 moods of Indian federalism.
Dosti, cooperation, race, competition, or jhagda, confrontation.
Like classmates who cooperate on a project, compete in exams, and sometimes confront each other.
Exactly. Your introduction should state that India's federal structure is not static, but dynamic and has evolved through the continuous interplay of these 3 forces. Then in the body, provide clear recent examples for each C.
Let's do it for cooperation. The best example is the GST Council, where center and states make decisions together. Another one is Niti Aayog's Aspirational Districts program.
And for competition.
Here too, Niti Aayog is a key player. Its various rankings, like the Health Index, create a healthy competition among states. States also compete to attract foreign investment.
And confrontation. Plenty of examples here.
The most common are interstate water disputes, like the long-running Kaveri dispute. Then there are administrative tensions, like the CBI's jurisdiction being challenged by states like West Bengal. The power tussle in Delhi is another classic example.
And the conclusion?
Conclude by saying that Indian federalism is constantly shaped by these 3 forces. While confrontation highlights the stress points, the simultaneous existence of cooperation and competition shows the resilience of India's federal structure.
Let's tackle the cross questions. For a 10-mark question, is one example for each C enough?
One good example is enough, but giving 2 shows the breadth of your knowledge. For cooperation, mentioning both GST Council and Niti Aayog is great.
Should I explain each example in great detail?
No, for a 10-mark question, a brief 1-line explanation is sufficient. The key is to cover all 3 C's with valid examples.
How can I link the 3 C's together in the conclusion?
You can say something like, the future of Indian federalism lies in transforming confrontation into competition and competition into cooperation. It's a forward-looking approach.
You mentioned Niti Aayog for both competition and cooperation. Is that okay?
Yes. In fact, it's an excellent point. It shows a nuanced understanding. Its governing council is a model of cooperation, but its indices promote competition.
What's the best way to structure this answer?
Use clear subheadings. Cooperation, competition, and confrontation. It's simple but very effective for readability.
Last question. Can I use an informal word like frenemies for my own notes?
For your own understanding, absolutely. It's a perfect way to think about it. But in the exam, stick to formal terms.
Great. Practice cue. Pause and try to recall one recent example for each of the 3 C's. Cooperation, competition, and conflict. Chalo, try it.
Mini recap. Indian federalism is a mixed bag of teamwork, rivalry, and conflict. And it's this dynamic mix that keeps it evolving.
Moving on to the 6th question, from 2019 for 10 marks.
Let's see.
From the resolution of contentious issues regarding the distribution of legislative powers by the courts, the principle of federal supremacy and harmonious construction has emerged. Explain.
Broad micro-theme. Judicial doctrines in federalism.
So, the judiciary as federalism's umpire?
This sounds very technical, but it's simple. जब सेंटर और स्टेट के बनाए हुए लॉज आपस में टकराते हैं तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट अंपायर की तरह फैसला सुनाता है. टू डू दिस इट यूजेस टू मेन प्रिंसिपल्स.
The traffic rules analogy.
Yes, a local signal says go, but a national highway signal says stop. In a direct conflict, the national highway rule will be followed. That's federal supremacy. But the court will first try to find a way for both to work together. That is harmonious construction.
Perfect. Let's frame the answer. Introduction.
Explain that the judiciary, especially the Supreme Court, has played a crucial role in interpreting the constitutional division of legislative powers. In this process, it has developed these two important doctrines.
And for the body, we define each separately.
Body the two doctrines. First, principle of federal supremacy. This is based on Article 254. It states that in a direct conflict between a central law and a state law on a concurrent list subject, the central law will prevail. You can cite the classic case of State of West Bengal versus Union of India, 1963.
And the second one.
Second, doctrine of harmonious construction. This is the preferred approach of the courts. The court's first job is to avoid a conflict. It tries to interpret the two laws in a way that they can both operate. Only when this is impossible, federal supremacy is applied.
And the conclusion.
Conclude that these judicial doctrines have been instrumental in strengthening India's cooperative federalism. They provide clear guidelines for resolving legislative conflicts and create a balance between union's authority and state's autonomy.
Time for cross questions. First, why is it essential to mention Article 254?
Because Article 254 is the specific constitutional provision that gives this principle its legal force. Not mentioning it is like explaining gravity without mentioning Newton.
What is the core difference between the two principles in one sentence?
Federal supremacy is a conflict resolution tool of last resort that establishes a hierarchy, while harmonious construction is a conflict avoidance tool of first preference that seeks coexistence.
How can I make this answer less theoretical?
Use a recent example. For instance, in the context of agriculture laws, if a state MSP law contradicts a central contract farming law, the court would first try to harmonize them. If impossible, the central law would prevail under Article 254.
Is it important to remember the case name?
Yes. Landmark case names are like power-ups for your answer. They act as strong evidence for your points.
How do these doctrines support cooperative federalism? Federal supremacy seems anti-federal.
Brilliant question. They create a clear rulebook. When everyone knows the rules, cooperation becomes easier. Federal supremacy provides certainty and prevents legislative chaos when a conflict is unavoidable.
Final one. Should I define the terms in the introduction or the body?
It's better to briefly introduce the role of the judiciary in the intro and then define and explain each principle under its own subheading in the body for better structure.
Got it. Practice cue. Pause and practice saying. Federal supremacy under Article 254 establishes hierarchy in conflict, while the doctrine of harmonious construction seeks to reconcile laws to allow them to coexist.
Mini recap. The Supreme Court acts as an umpire, using these two key principles. First, trying to harmonize laws, and if that fails, applying federal supremacy to keep the federal game running.
We are halfway through. Let's power on to question 7 from 2015.
Let's do it.
The concept of cooperative federalism has been increasingly emphasized in recent years, highlight the drawbacks in the existing structure and the extent to which cooperative federalism would answer the shortcomings.
Broad micro-theme, making cooperative federalism work.
So cooperative federalism, the promise and the problems.
The keyword is cooperative federalism, which means center-state partnership. The question is simple. What are the current problems and how can cooperation solve them?
Like a business partnership with problems of unequal fund distribution and how they can solve it together.
Exactly. For the introduction, explain the shift from a hierarchical top-down model to a partnership-based approach, which is the essence of cooperative federalism.
Now the body with two clear sections. First, the drawbacks.
Body part 1, drawbacks in the existing structure. First, fiscal imbalances. The vertical fiscal imbalance we discussed earlier, the politicization of grants is also an issue.
Second,
Administrative overlaps. The design of centrally sponsored schemes is often rigid. And third, constitutional tensions. The controversial role of the governor and the use of central agencies like the CBI.
now how cooperative federalism can be the solution.
Body part 2, cooperative federalism as a solution. To solve fiscal imbalances, it promotes partnership through institutions like the GST Council. To solve administrative overlaps, it encourages collaborative governance through bodies like Niti Aayog.
And to solve constitutional tensions?
It emphasizes dialogue. A revitalized interstate council could be the main platform to resolve differences and build trust.
And?
The conclusion. Conclude that while the vision of cooperative federalism is promising, making it effective requires strengthening existing institutional mechanisms. The successes seen during GST implementation and COVID-19 management show its potential.
Let's get to the cross questions. How do I structure the answer to address both parts directly?
The best way is to use two main headings from the question: drawbacks in the existing structure and how cooperative federalism provides a solution.
Is mentioning the 15th Finance Commission's recommendation, change from 42% to 41%, a good detail to add for fiscal imbalances?
It's an excellent, specific detail. It proves you know the facts.
And I use the GST Council as an example of both a success and a source of tension?
Yes, that shows critical thinking. You can say that while it's a great example of cooperation, it has also been a cycle of tension over compensation delays.
What is a centrally sponsored scheme or CSS in simple terms?
It's a central government scheme implemented by states, but the funding is shared between the center and the state in a specific ratio, like 60-40 or 90-10.
How exactly does Niti Aayog promote cooperative federalism?
It acts as a platform for center-state dialogue and collaborative policy formulation. Its governing council has all state CMs, a big change from the top-down planning commission.
Last one. What's a forward-looking way to conclude this answer?
Suggests that the spirit of cooperative federalism is more important than just the institutions. It requires continuous dialogue, mutual trust, and a commitment from both sides.
Perfect. Practice cue. Pause and rehearse. Cooperative federalism aims to solve the existing fiscal, administrative, and constitutional drawbacks in center-state relations through partnership and dialogue.
Mini recap. Cooperative federalism is the proposed medicine for the problems in the center-state relationship, but it needs to be applied consistently and with genuine trust.
Let's continue to question 8 from 2014.
Okay.
Though the federal principle is dominant in our constitution, it is equally true that federalism under the Indian constitution leans in favor of a strong center, a feature that militates against the concept of strong federalism. Discuss.
Broad micro-theme, the asymmetrical nature of Indian federalism.
So, federal in form, unitary in spirit?
This is a classic question. India's constitution is like a car that looks like a two-seater sports car, federal, but under the hood, it has the engine of a heavy truck, strong center.
Or a school band with a lead singer, the center, who's most prominent, but the band can't exist without the other musicians. They're states.
A great way to start is with Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's quote. India's system is federal in form but unitarian spirit.
For the body, you need to show both sides of the coin. Body part 1. Features supporting a strong center. First, legislative dominance. The union list has more subjects than the state list. In the concurrent list, the center's law prevails.
Second, financial supremacy. The center controls major revenue sources.
Third, administrative control. The institution of the governor, all India services like IS, IPS in Article 356.
But then you must present the other side. Body part 2, federal safeguards.
Right. First, constitutional division of powers. The 7th schedule clearly demarcates powers. Second, institutional mechanisms like the Interstate Council and GST Council. And third, judicial interpretation. The Supreme Court in the S.R. Bommai case declared federalism a basic feature of the Constitution.
And for the conclusion, it has to be a balancing act. Conclude that while the system is intentionally tilted towards the center, robust constitutional safeguards and an active judiciary ensure that regional autonomy is not completely undermined.
Cross questions coming up. Why is Ambedkar's quote so powerful for this answer?
Because it's a quote from the architect of the Constitution himself that perfectly captures the central argument. The most ideal way to start.
What exactly is the 7th schedule?
It's the part of the Constitution that contains 3 lists that divide powers between the center and the states, the union list, the state list, and the concurrent list.
How do all India services give the center control over states?
Though these officers work in state cadres, the center has the ultimate authority over their recruitment, training, and disciplinary matters. This gives the center significant leverage.
Is it a good idea to mention a recent Supreme Court judgment here?
Yes, excellent. Mentioning the 2023 Delhi Services ruling or the 2025 Tamil Nadu Governor ruling shows that these safeguards are not just theoretical concepts, but are actively enforced today.
How can I structure this answer to show both sides clearly?
Use clear headings like features supporting a strong center and federal safeguards protecting states' autonomy. This creates a clear for and against structure.
Last one. What's a common mistake to avoid in this answer?
Taking an extreme stance. Don't just argue that India is purely unitary or purely federal. The key is to explain the coexistence and the tension between both features.
Got it. Practice cue. Pause and practice saying, Indian federalism is a unique blend described as federal in form but unitary in spirit, with a clear constitutional tilt towards a strong center for national unity.
Mini recap. India's federalism is asymmetrical. The center has more weight for unity, but constitutional checks and balances ensure the states aren't pushed over.
Let's take the 9th question from 2013 for 10 marks.
Okay.
Constitutional mechanisms to resolve the interstate water disputes have failed to address and solve the problems. Is the failure due to structural or process inadequacy or both? Discuss.
Broad micro-theme, water federalism and its challenges.
So the river runs through it. India's water wars. The question is the problem in the system itself, structural, or in the way it works, process?
Like two neighbors fighting over a common water tank. Is the problem the tank's design, structural, or the water-taking timetable, process? A powerful way to start is with a fact. There are currently 5 active interstate water dispute tribunals. This itself indicates failure.
Now for the body. Structural versus process. First, structural inadequacies.
Body Part 1. Structural inadequacies. First, Article 262. It can bar the Supreme Court's jurisdiction, creating a legal vacuum. Second, ad hoc tribunals. There is no permanent tribunal, which causes delays from the start. Third, lack of a multidisciplinary approach. Tribunals are mostly judicial members, lacking experts.
Now for the other side. Process inadequacies.
Body Part 2. Process inadequacies. First, extreme delays. The Kaveri Tribunal took 17 years. Second, weak enforcement. States often defy the awards. Third, lack of data sharing, which leads to mistrust.
So the conclusion is clear.
Conclude that the failure is due to both structural and process inadequacies, which have a compounded negative effect. The way forward requires reforms like a permanent water disputes tribunal with strict timelines.
Let's get to the cross questions. Why start with the number of active tribunals?
It's a powerful piece of data. It immediately establishes the scale of the problem. It grounds your answer in facts.
What is the main function of Article 262 in simple terms?
It gives Parliament the power to create a separate judicial system, the tribunals, for interstate river disputes and to keep the regular courts out of it.
How can I explain the compounded effect of both inadequacies simply?
You can say that a bad design, structural inadequacy, is made worse by slow implementation, process inadequacy, creating a vicious cycle of delays and defiance.
What's a good example of delay to mention?
The Kaveri dispute is the classic example. The tribunal was set up in 1990, but the final award came only in 2007. The delay itself became a major conflict.
Is mentioning a potential solution, like the Interstate River Water Disputes Amendment Bill, useful?
Absolutely. It makes your conclusion forward-looking and solution-oriented.
Should I blame the states or the center for these failures?
It's better to remain neutral and focus on the institutional and systemic failures. Frame it as a problem with the mechanism.
Good advice. Practice Q. Pause and say, the failure in resolving interstate water disputes is due to a combination of structural flaws in the mechanism, like ad hoc tribunals, and process-related delays in adjudication and enforcement.
Mini recap. India's water disputes persist because the system designed to solve them is both poorly designed and slow to act.
On to the 10th question, also from 2013.
Let's do it.
Can it also be justified that a larger number of smaller states would bring in effective governance at the state level? Discuss.
Broad micro theme. State reorganization and governance.
So, small states, big governance. The great debate. क्या बड़े states को छोटे-छोटे states में तोड़ देने से governance बेहतर हो जाती है?
Like a large company. Is it better to have one giant CEO or break it into smaller agile units? A good introduction would use the creation of Telangana in 2014 and Uttarakhand, Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh in 2000 as the context.
Now for the body. A discuss question. So both sides. First, arguments in favor.
Body part 1. Arguments in favor of smaller states. First, administrative efficiency. The government is closer to the people. Uttarakhand showed success in MGNREGA. Second, better resource allocation. Chhattisgarh reformed its PDS effectively. Third, greater citizen participation.
Now for the other side, the challenges.
Body part 2, challenges with smaller states. First, economic viability. Many smaller states are heavily dependent on the center. Second, infrastructure duplication. Creating a new capital, high court, etc. is a huge cost.
Third, increased interstate issues over borders, water, etc.
And the most important part, the way forward.
The way forward isn't just about size. It's about technology, fair fiscal federalism, and building the capacity of local institutions like panchayats.
And the conclusion?
Conclude that governance effectiveness is not solely dependent on a state size. It is determined by the quality of its institutions and policies. Give examples of well-governed large states like Gujarat or Kerala.
Cross questions time. Why are the examples of Chhattisgarh's PDS and Uttarakhand's MGNREGA so important? Because they provide concrete evidence. Instead of just saying governance improves, you are proving it with a specific scheme's success.
How can we argue against smaller states without sounding negative?
Frame the points as challenges or potential downsides, rather than as definitive failures. Focus on practical issues like economic viability.
Is it a good idea to mention the ongoing demands for new states like Vidarbha?
You can mention it briefly in the introduction to show the topic is still relevant, but don't go into detail. The focus should remain on governance.
What is a better alternative to creating smaller states?
Democratic decentralization. Empowering local government bodies like panchayats and municipalities. This improves governance at the grassroots level.
How should I structure this debate-style discuss question?
Foreign against structure is perfect. Use headings like arguments in favor and challenges, followed by a way forward that synthesizes both views.
And what is the key one-line takeaway?
That size is not the magic bullet for good governance. It is just one factor among many more important ones.
Makes perfect sense. Practice Q, pause and practice saying. Effective governance depends more on institutional quality and policy implementation rather than just the geographical size of a state.
Many recap. When it comes to good governance, size doesn't matter as much as the system and the political will to make it work.
2 more to go. Let's discuss the very important topic of Jammu and Kashmir.
Let's do it.
Okay. A perspective question for 2025 for 10 marks. Discuss the nature of Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly after the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act 2019. Briefly describe the powers and functions of the Assembly.
Broad micro theme. Federalism in a union territory with legislature.
The heading. A new chapter. The J&K Assembly post-2019.
Exactly. After the abrogation of Article 370, J&K is now a union territory with a legislative assembly. What does this new assembly look like?
It's like a company's branch office. It has some freedom, but important matters like security and land are still controlled by the head office.
A very good analogy. The introduction must mention the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act 2019 and the abrogation of Article 370. This is non-negotiable.
In the body, let's first describe the nature of the assembly.
Body part 1, nature of the assembly. First, it is a union territory with a legislature similar to Puducherry, governed by Article 239A. Second, it operates under the direct supervision of the LG, Lieutenant Governor. Third, it is now a unicameral legislature. The old state had a bicameral legislature.
Now for its powers and functions.
Body part 2, powers and functions. First, legislative powers. The assembly can make laws on most subjects in the state and concurrent lists. However, it cannot make laws on public order, police, and land revenue.
And financial powers?
The Assembly can pass the budget. However, all money bills require the prior recommendation of the LG. The LG's concurrence is crucial. And executive functions. The Assembly holds the Council of Ministers accountable through question hour, debates, etc.
And to conclude
By describing it as a hybrid federal structure designed to balance regional democratic participation with strong central oversight.
let's get to the cross questions. How is the J&K Assembly different from Delhi's Assembly?
The key difference is the governing article. J&K is under Article 239A, similar to Puducherry. Delhi has its own special article, 239AA, which has been the subject of much more intense debate.
What does unicameral mean in simple terms?
It means the legislature has only one house. The previous J&K state had two houses, a legislative assembly and a legislative council.
Why are sensitive subjects like police, public order, and land kept out of the Assembly's powers?
These are considered critical for national security and administration, especially in a sensitive border region. The center retains direct control over them to ensure stability.
What is the role of the Lieutenant Governor, LG, in this new setup?
The LG is the key link to the center and holds significant power, much more than a governor in a full state. The LG's concurrence is required for many key actions.
How should I structure the powers and functions part for clarity?
Use clear subheadings: legislative powers, financial powers, and executive functions. This organizes the information logically.
Is it correct to say this is a step back for federalism?
It's better to use neutral, analytical language. Instead of a value judgment, describe it as a shift or a transformation to a hybrid federal structure with enhanced central oversight.
Great point. Practice Q. Pause and rehearse. The post-2019 J&K Assembly is a UT legislature under Article 239A with legislative powers over the state list, except for the crucial subjects of police, public order, and land.
Mini recap. The new J&K Assembly has democratic functions, but with significant checks and controls from the center, exercised through the powerful office of the LG.
And now for the final question of our mega session.
From 2016.
Let's finish strong.
Discuss the essentials of the 69th Constitutional Amendment Act and anomalies that have led to recent reported conflicts between the elected representatives and the institution of the Lieutenant Governor in the administration of Delhi.
Broad micro theme, the Delhi model, a federalism test case.
So Delhi's power tussle, elected gov versus LG?
This topic is always in the news.
The root of the problem lies in the 69th Amendment Act itself. It's like a car with two steering wheels, one for the driver, CM,
And one for the front seat passenger, LG.
and dono car chalana chahte hain. Let's frame the answer.
Introduction.
Introduce the 69th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1991 as a landmark step that gave Delhi a legislative assembly. However, also mention that its unique and ambiguous provisions have created a constant source of conflict.
Now for the body. First, the essentials of the amendment.
Body Part 1, Essentials of the 69th Amendment Act. It introduced Article 239AA, creating the NCT of Delhi. It provided for a 70-member legislative assembly and a CM.
And it gave the assembly legislative powers on all subjects except three.
Yes, except for public order, police, and land.
Now for the core of the issue, the anomalies and sources of conflict.
Body Part 2, Anomalies and Sources of Conflict. First, ambiguity in power distribution. The LG has discretionary powers and can refer any matter to the president. Second, the services controversy. Who controls the bureaucrats? This is the biggest flashpoint. The Supreme Court has had to step in multiple times.
And finally, differing interpretations.
Yes. The elected government interprets the constitution to mean that the LG is bound by its aid and advice, while the LG's office interprets its powers more broadly.
And the conclusion?
Conclude that the Delhi model is a crucial testing ground for Indian federalism. Resolving these conflicts is essential for shaping a more robust cooperative federalism framework.
Final set of cross questions. What is the absolute core of Article 239AA?
Its core is the creation of a special status for Delhi with an elected government, but with the LG retaining significant powers, especially over the three reserved subjects.
Why is the services issue so contentious?
Because control over the bureaucracy is fundamental to governance. An elected government makes policies, but it is the bureaucrats who implement them. Without control over officers, a government's ability to execute its mandate is severely hampered.
How can I structure this complex answer simply?
Use three clear parts in the body: key provisions, anomalies and sources of conflict, and a short impact on federal politics.
Is it important to mention the Supreme Court's role?
Absolutely critical. You cannot write this answer without it. The Supreme Court has been the primary arbiter in the Delhi power tussle.
Does this conflict give rise to a new trend in federal politics?
Yes, it does. The trend of asymmetrical federal models and the increasing use of constitutional courts to resolve political and administrative deadlocks.
And what's a simple way to explain the constitutional ambiguity?
You can say that the law creates a dual control system. It gives executive power to the elected government, but also gives the LG the power to disagree and refer matters, creating unclear boundaries.
Fantastic. Practice Q. Pause and rehearse. The 69th Amendment created a dual control structure in Delhi under Article 239AA, leading to continuous conflicts between the elected government and the LG, especially over the control of services.
Mini recap. Delhi's governance model is a constitutional experiment in power sharing that has led to a constant tug of war for control between the elected chief minister and the centrally appointed LG.
तो दोस्तों, व्हाट अ मैराथन सेशन, क्या सफर था। आज हमने इंडियन फेडरलिज्म की पूरी कहानी देखी।
We certainly covered a lot of ground. The main theme was this constant search for balance. The broad micro theme for our entire discussion was the dynamic evolution of Indian federalism.
Let's do a final, super quick recap of our 12-question journey.
Yes,
We started with center-state financial relations and saw how India moved from a planned economy to a more collaborative model, with GST being the biggest game changer.
then we explored the three moods of federalism: cooperation, competition, and confrontation, and saw how the Supreme Court acts as an umpire.
We examined the Constitution's centralizing bias, which gives the center more power in emergencies, but also saw how this can lead to friction, like with the Farm Act.
We also looked at persistent problems like interstate water disputes and the debate on smaller states for better governance.
And finally, we decoded the special and often contentious governance models for the Union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Delhi.
एक आखिरी सवाल छोड़ जाता हूं for all of you to think about. As India becomes more diverse and economically powerful, do you think the future of its federalism lies more in competitive federalism, where states race ahead on their own, or in more cooperative federalism, where everyone moves together? इस पे सोचना जरूर.
Wow, that's a powerful thought to end on. इस सवाल का जवाब हमें कमेंट्स में जरूर देना. If you enjoyed this super deep analysis, then चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करना मत भूलना. इस वीडियो को अपने सभी दोस्तों के साथ शेयर करो और लाइक बटन को जरूर हिट करना. अगली बार मिलेंगे एक और अमेजिंग टॉपिक के साथ. तब तक कीप लर्निंग, कीप ग्रोइंग. जय हिंद.